Ciao.
Flogman.
When entering virtual reality, you should calibrate the system by looking at your own hands, then turning them over and looking at the backs of them with a sense of wonder.
Roger that.
It's interesting to me. When it gets interesting to me is when we can upload ourselves. Because then my digital mansion that I had paid to build for myself, or paid somebody to build for me, then somebody can give me a, TNFTT.
I actually saw a speculation. I forgot. I must have been in an article somewhere because someone was speculating. Well, what if you download your brain into an AI?
Yeah.
And now, how do you ensure that this is really your brain in the AI?
Yeah.
And at that point, NFT or Ken's own TNFT, now special discount just for listeners. That something like that becomes important because you need to have some way to verify the integrity, literally, of you.
That's a fast. Okay, see now. Okay, I wish you had said that yesterday. I'm sorry. Yesterday, Jeff Gamet told us that his second thought on technology and all of that stuff was NFT, and I'm like, yeah, that makes no sense to me. And towards the end, I'm still like, yeah, well, okay. But yes, now that you say, artificial intelligentsia, or like me, I just walk around with a badge that says, no, it's really me. In the metaverse, in cyberspace, in the capital F future. But sadly, we're off that. Or actually, no, that would actually really work well with what we were going to talk about today. So
I love the setup then.
Well, it was an accident, as you know, because you brought me the topic, unless you planned it. I could almost say that I have had a new aha moment since I talked about the whole thing a few weeks ago about 5G. For a long time, we've talked about, Apple's going to make AR glasses and whatever. And occasionally the possibility would come up that Apple was going to do a VR headset. I remember one of his earliest times on this show, Brian Chaffin, said that's never going to happen. And I was kind of with him. It was never going to happen, except that people kept saying, well, no, they're going to do that first. They're going to do this other thing. And I had a conversation with someone, it might have been Brian, like another time that he was on, saying, I still don't understand it because I still don't see what's transferable. Like I would get VR if getting people to build apps for the VR headset would somehow give you a leg up on AR, but it doesn't because VR is opaque and AR is, at the very least translucent, if not transparent. In other words, you put on a VR headset, you go to a completely different place. You put on an AR headset, you're laying data over the world around you. Mm-hmm. And then there was an article recently. I can't remember if it might have been Ming-Chi Kuo, might have been somebody else, but a leaker said, yeah, so here's the thing. Apple's VR headset is going to have like 15 cameras on it. So it'll be able to see in your surroundings. And then all of a sudden you've got something that's both VR and AR. And now I am completely on board with Apple making a VR headset. Because now it's going to be people still making apps for AR, even though it's technically a VR thing. Mixed reality, some call it. And so that's kind of where I am. I'm curious where you are on the whole thing. Sorry, I may have just done our whole segment in about 2 minutes there. I'm not sure. I'm suddenly like now all about Apple's VR thing, which rumor has it is coming out next year. And I'm already saving my shekels.
Well, Apple, they already showed us their cards, I think, with VR because they invested so heavily in AR and they continue to do so. Like even going so far as to adding LiDAR to iOS devices. And to me, that's all a precursor to getting into VR. So, yeah, of course, Apple is getting into this.
Well, hold on. All the LiDAR is precursor to Apple getting into VR or precursor to AR by way of VR?
The horrible answer, which is also the right answer, is yes.
Okay.
It all plays together. So if you want people to get invested in having some sort of augmentation to what they're experiencing in a digital way, You need to create this in a way that is very approachable to people. So you do that not by saying go out and buy this Oculus Rift and all this other equipment and make sure you get the right PC with the right processor and multiple video cards so that you can do this. What you do is give it to them on something they already have, which is their iPhone and their iPad. And then you keep iterating on that. And then eventually you get to the point where people are familiar enough with this that when you bring it into VR, they're willing to make that jump. But then why not do what Apple is doing, where there's going to be all these extra cameras, and now you take that VR and AR and just mash the whole thing together, and now you have what did you call it? A blended AR experience?
A mixed reality, I believe, is what.
Or mixed reality.
What they keep referring to it as. Yeah.
Yeah. So the roadmap that Apple is apparently laying out for us tells me that, yeah, they're working on some sort of head-worn, face-worn thing that's going to give us an experience that at least Apple feels is going to be superior to what we're getting with AR today by holding up our iPhones, or VR today by going out and buying, say, an Oculus Rift, which, if you wear glasses, is horribly uncomfortable to wear, like me, and give us something that blends the best of everything together, and then it's the must-have product for under your Christmas tree this year or next year, whenever.
See, that's interesting. And I know we talked earlier this week about no, Apple did not introduce the HomePod to soften the ground for the HomePod Mini. I can't help thinking that Apple is doing the mixed reality VR AR helmet, assuming that that's a thing that's actually happening. I don't really think Apple would care at all about virtual reality, but virtual reality is going to be the thing that we kind of understand thanks to what Sony sells with the PS5 or what Facebook sells with the Oculus and the Oculus Rift and the Oculus Go and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We get virtual reality even if we don't have it. Even if we haven't used it, we understand it in concept. And so Apple's going to go ahead and sell this. It's not just going to be a toy, no matter what Allison Sheridan says. It's not just going to be a toy, but they're going to sell this thing that's mostly going to be a toy for the consumer. But it's going to have all this AR stuff on it. And then developers can go ahead and start building AR apps so that when Apple is ready to introduce the AR glasses, it's already in the public consciousness what this thing could be and what it could do. And you don't have to have a bunch of developers getting a bunch of, DTKs that they don't want to send back, even if you're going to give them more money than you were going to give them in the first place for sending it back. You don't have to give them all the DTKs, because the problem is still in the consumer's mind, even if there are 1,000 apps, if you don't know why you're going to be putting that thing on your face, you're not going to buy it. Whereas the VR thing, as long as it has all the AR stuff and developers can play in it and really see how people are going to use them, then by the time you hit with something that's strictly AR, we get it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally makes sense. And yet at the same time, I still see a place where Apple could keep, like, the helmet thing going for quite a while, where they're doing the whole blended thing, which to me, if you're doing it blended, that also says you can make it or you can use it in a strictly VR sense if you wanted for specific apps. And so for gaming, sure, but we'll see how well Apple does with VR gaming. But where I see real potential for Apple is in creativity and design. So this comes from having seen a really low end VR app where you put on your helmet, your gloves, and then I'm doing air quotes, paint in a VR environment. What if you could do like full on like Illustrator, Photoshop level work in a virtual environment where you are literally immersed inside the piece of artwork that you're creating?
Yeah.
And
I've played with one of those. They're kind of amazing. Not with the Photoshop level that you're talking about, but the painting thing that you were talking about, where it's somewhere between painting and sculpting because you're able to paint in 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very rudimentary, but at the same time, it's really cool.
Yeah. And then you could build that giant mansion that I'm one day going to NFT live in.
Right. It's a baby step towards finally having the holodeck.